All right, so I'm doing my last video on really the last subject that I think needs to be addressed, and this has just come up. Over Mother's Day this year, I had a very sickening feeling as I was studying about a certain person who I was thinking could be the Antichrist, or if you followed any of my videos, the Mahdi or the final Caliph. And he, I believe, emerged. I think he emerged in the end of December. And I know this is not something that people want to talk about. I know many Christians are just holding on day to day with the cares of this world. But I am a watchman, and I am required to speak when I see these things. And I want to remind you of Luke 21, where it says, verse 34, it says, "Be careful, or your hearts will be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and the anxieties of life. And that day," and it's speaking of the day of the Lord, when he returns, "will close on you suddenly like a trap, for it will come on all those who live on the face of the earth. Be always on the watch and pray that you may be able to escape all that is about to happen, and that you may be able to stand before the Son of Man." I believe that these days are happening. And I have put out several videos before. I'm not going to go in too much depth, but I'm going to give a brief overview so you know where I'm coming from. But I believed in Revelation 13 when it talks about two beasts, the land beast and the sea beast, that these weren't just beasts, they were kingdoms. And I get that from many different parts in the Bible, to be honest. But in the interpretation of Daniel's dream in Daniel 7, when Daniel asked, he had a dream about four beasts and it disturbed him. And the angel said, the four beasts are four kings. And then it goes on in verse 23, it says the fourth beast is a fourth kingdom. So which is it? Is it a king or is it a kingdom? Most prophecy experts will say that it's in Revelation 13, speaking of the beast, which is just the Antichrist, and the other beast is the false prophet. But I come from an avenue of that it's more than that. Now, 6 weeks before what broke out war in Gaza and Israel, before that happened, I had done a video called The Coming Storm. And I think everybody needs to watch those videos. But that was about 6 weeks before what actually broke out. And in that, I have this diagram, and it speaks of the beast. And I showed that I felt that this was an unholy trinity, that the beast wasn't just the sea beast or the land beast, but it's an unholy trinity. And the Godhead of that trinity is Allah, and he's the dragon. And in that, I break down that the sea beast is a king and a kingdom, where Christians always look at it as being, this is just the Antichrist. In previous videos, I've painstakingly gone through and broke through why it's not Rome, why it is the caliphate that comes back in the end, and that the ruler is the Mahdi, and that Mahdi is the Antichrist. And I've compared those. I highly encourage you to watch those videos because I do not have time to go through it again. But in the sea beast, there are some things that I broke down. It is a specific area. And that area was the lion, the leopard, and the bear. That territory is where you're going to see the 10 kings unite to come against Israel. That is a caliphate that is coming. It's a specified area. There will be 10 kings, and the 10 horns, that beast kingdom, it derives its power from the horns. In this scenario, the horns are 10 kingdoms with 10 kings. There's crown on those horns. We know that at the 3.5 marker, Israel becomes invaded. And when Israel becomes invaded, the Antichrist will be revealed to the world. Before that, he is somewhat of a mystery. But we know he wants to take Jerusalem. And at that 3.5 mark, also, not only will the abomination of desolation happen at that time, but in Revelations 12, you are told that Satan at that time is cast into a man. And that's exactly what Islam believes. They believe an angel of light will descend on the Mahdi, baptizing him into his call. And with that is heart-shaking angels, is what they believe. But we are told in Revelations 12 that there is a rebellion in heaven, and it's going to happen at a specific time. When Israel is invaded is when the rebellion in heaven happens. So if you can realize that Revelation 12, that segment of war in heaven, is not speaking of how we got demons, but demons was actually how we got them in the book of Enoch. then people will be prepared to understand that what happens at Revelations 12 when Satan is cast into a man and he brings a third of the angels down with him, the world is getting prepped right now to be able to see that and to think that it's UFOs, that it's aliens, but it's not. The Bible warned us of these days, and when we take things out of context and don't look at them correctly, we're going to get confused and we're set up for deception. Now, this one will have this sea beast, which is not just the Antichrist, but the kingdom of the Antichrist, will also be able to conquer Jews and Christians. There is a remnant inside of Israel that will stay protected. They are protected because of the covenant in Genesis 15. God always saves a remnant of Jews because he tied his life to that covenant in Genesis 15. You need to go to my previous videos to see this in depth. But inside of this kingdom, it has blasphemies. So it denies, in Islam itself, the name of Allah denies denies God is a father and has a son. And we know as Christians that that's Antichrist in nature. This sea beast is a king and a kingdom. Now, there's also another beast system. That is the land beast. Most Christians and prophecy experts will say the land beast is just the false prophet. Well, I'm telling you it's more than just the false prophet. It is a kingdom. This kingdom is very different with the sea beast, but they work together. And my goal is to show you some of how they work together. The land beast had no specific locations. There's no borders. It covers the land. There are no kings, but there are two horns. The horns, again, is how this kingdom derives its power, but it's different. It doesn't have kings. If you go to my previous videos, and I will have a link down below in the description, I will have the end time short video and some of the other ones in the descriptions. If you go to that, I show you that the New World Order's power derives from two hedge funds, BlackRock and Vanguard, and they will own everything. If you watch the movie Monopoly, you will see, and I will include a link to that video, you will see that BlackRock and Vanguard are going to own every business in the world. And what that does is it allows them to be able to establish a mark. If you control all the merchandise, you can control what you will receive for that merchandise. So if you want to go digital with the currency, you're going to go digital with the currency. And it is so important to understand that because we have pastors out there that says, well, this can't be the mark of the beast because there's no beast. They're looking at it wrong. The digital currency that the laws that just got passed through Trump about the stable coins connects, and you need to watch my video on the mark of the beast to see how that does. But this beast system makes the whole earth worship the first beast. Well, how do you do that? This is the technological puppeteers that will make Islam look like their prophecies are coming true to excite the Muslim world. Now remember, I said that in Revelations 12 there's a time when Satan gets cast out of heaven mid-trib, and with him a third of the angels follow. Very much the Project Blue Beam that the New World Order had been found out that they wanted to do, and they killed Sergei Monast and the guy that wrote The Pale Horse and other people who talked about this at that time. Why did they die? They died because they had revealed something that was before its time. You see, if you can fake Jesus coming out of the sky, you're going to excite the Muslim world because he's going to be the Muslim Jesus. And you're going to make those Islamic prophecies come true, which will only gather and unite the nations against Israel to invade them. This one causes fire from heaven, and it also forced the mark. This is a perfect fit. There are two separate kingdoms. The false prophet will be a part of it, but the kingdom that makes this look like he's legit is these puppeteers, and they do it for a reason. So I encourage you to go to these short videos. If you don't have time, go to the Caliph, Mahdi, and the Antichrist video that's under 10 minutes, and the Second Beast Kingdom on my End Time Shorts on my Joan of Arc for Freedom on Rumble. That's where most of my videos are. And for more of an in-depth of what I said before on the coming storm for Israel 3 years ago, to have that explained a little bit more, go and watch those 3-part videos. I encourage you to do that. I get nothing out of it. Now, I did say that this is their plan. A while ago, I came across Albert Pike's plans for 3 world wars. I want you to Google that plan. In it, you'll see that there's Plan 1 and Plan 2 for World War I and World War II. But this letter that was discovered of Albert Pike talking to Mazzini did not show up until the 1950s. So I do not believe Albert Pike had the gift of prophecy. But Albert Pike was the leader of the Illuminati back in that time. And I think they wanted to paint a picture that he was prophetic. I think this, though, has been their plan from the beginning. So if you look at 2 separate kingdoms, this is what that letter said for the Third World War. And if you keep this in mind, you understand the moves that they're making, because I think they have to announce everything that they're going to do before, and you create time and space in between your moves so people can't track it back to you. Now, the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantages of the differences caused by the agent tour of the Illuminati between political Zionists and leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Now, why would that be the plan for the Illuminati to do? And why would this letter in 1950s emerge? Because I believe this is exactly their plan. In order to break the covenant in Genesis 15, and God laid his life down for that covenant, you have to kill the Jews, and now you have to also kill the Christians, because we are grafted into their story. God pledged their life to the Jews on that covenant over the land. They have never yet received that land in the full context of what God had promised. Satan has always tried to stop that fulfillment. Why? Because we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. What do the principalities want? They still think they have a win. If you can wipe out everyone that's supposed to inherit that promise, you could kill God, because God pledged his life. But when Christians got grafted into the story, there was an explosion on the earth. And then you not only saw the Jews get persecuted, but you also saw Christians get persecuted, because we are enemies of Satan. The Jews brought forth the Messiah for us to be connected to God. We were cut off before that as Gentiles, and only the Jews had a way. The Jews denied Jesus, which opened the door for the Gentiles to be saved. In the end, it's about Israel coming back to the Father. The prodigal sons return home, and a banquet is thrown for that prodigal son. We get to join in that. The enemies, the principalities, want to stop this from happening. You have to understand the motive. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism must mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on the issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilist and the atheist, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm. In all its horror, will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization. That language I've seen in both kingdoms. That is speaking of the Christians. And the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer. When do you get the true light of that universal manifestation of Lucifer that they're talking about? You get it when he gets kicked out of heaven. The manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. I believe this is their game plan. What they want to do is create a war between Islam and Jews so that Islam will wipe out the Jews. And in Islam, I speak about the Antichrist is the Mahdi. Well, who is the Mahdi? Well, in Islam, this is what they believe. One particular hadith places the Mahdi's ascendancy to power at the time of a final peace agreement between the Arabs and Romans should be interpreted as Christians or the West. Rasulullah Muhammad said there will be 4 peace agreements between you and the Romans. The 4th agreement will be mediated through a person who will be from the progeny of Hadrat Harun, Aaron, Moses' brother, and will be upheld for 7 years. So they believe that the Mahdi comes right before the peace agreement, and that the West is the one that mediates the peace agreement. Now, they also believe it says this, the prophet, now when it says the prophet and it's Islam, they're talking about Muhammad, said he will divide the property. Well, what property is that? That's Israel. And will govern the people by the sunnah of their prophet, that's the life of Muhammad, and establish Islam on earth. So he's going to establish Sharia law, and then he will remain 7 years, then die, and the Muslims will pray over him. So in Islam, they believe that the Mahdi comes to power right before a peace agreement. Now, if we were to look at the peace agreements that have happened where the West has mediated between the Arabs and the Jews, we have March 26, 1979 was the first Middle East agreement, and this was between Israel and Egypt, and it was signed on that date. There was a second Middle East agreement, and that was called the Oslo Accords. And then there was a third one. The third Middle East agreement was the Abraham Accords. And right now we're looking at the 4th agreement. And that is the new Abrahamic Alliance, Abraham Accords 2.0. This is what Trump is pushing for very much. This, if Satan understands prophecy, and he does understand some prophecy, not all prophecy, but he has studied it because he's a worthy opponent. And he likes to lie and twist things. And in Islam, you see that he has deceived the Muslims so that they will fight on his side against God. Now, this would be the 4th agreement, and they are expecting that the Mahdi should be coming up after the 4th agreement. Now, what does our Bible say? Well, 1 Thessalonians 5:2-4 says, the day of the Lord, for you are fully aware that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. While people are saying peace and security, destruction will come upon them suddenly, like a labor's pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. But you, brothers, are not in the darkness, so that this day should overtake you like a thief. This is speaking of Israel. Remember, the first Christians were Jewish. And he's saying, hey, this is going to take them by surprise when they're saying peace and safety, sudden destruction will come upon them. But you, Christians, you are not of the darkness, so this day should not overtake you like a thief. We should be aware of these things. Now, it also says in Revelations 6-1, it says, I watched as the Lamb opened the first of 7 seals. Then I heard one of the 4 living creatures say in a voice like thunder, come. I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. So we know that the Antichrist, in the first seal, he comes out and he's riding on conquering and on conquest, but he has not conquered fully yet. I believe the caliphate, the unified Muslim kingdom, will come after the signing of this peace agreement, because he comes out and he has a bow, but it's not pulled back yet. He's prepared to unify this at that time after the peace agreement. Now in Daniel 9:27 it says this. It says, and he, speaking of the Antichrist, will confirm a covenant. That could be the Abraham 2.0. With many, we're seeing many people confirming this covenant. But in the middle of the week, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of the temple will come the abomination that causes desolation, until the decreed destruction is poured out on him. So this is what we should be looking for in the Antichrist. These things. He comes out right before peace agreement. He's conquering and on conquest, but he hasn't been identified yet. Now, there is a peace agreement, and I want you to watch this video. This was on Daystar, and they are almost celebrating a peace agreement between this person, Syria, and Israel. Please watch.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rome. Yes, Rebecca, negotiations for Syria to join the Abraham Accords and normalize ties with the Jewish state are progressing. Political observers believe that it is just a matter of time until Jerusalem and Damascus forge a historic peace agreement. According to reports in Lebanese media, Syrian leader Ahmed al-Sharaa has dropped the demand for Israel to withdraw from the Golan Heights. Now, this is the first time Syria has relinquished its claim over the strategic territory that Israel annexed after the 1967 war. Al-Sharaa is seeking clearly defined security agreements for southern Syria and U.S. support for his country in exchange for normalizing ties with Israel. Analysts believe that once Syria joins the Abraham Accords, Lebanon and Saudi Arabia will soon follow and finally make peace with Israel.
The reasons I have concerns about that peace agreement is because Time magazine has come out and named Jolani one of the most 100th most influential people of 2025. Jolani has had a pep rally since he has come out. He conquered Syria in the end of December of 2024, or in December in 2024. In 2025, they had a PR push for him. Now, I want to remind you, in 1938, Time magazine also had a PR push for somebody else. His name was Adolf Hitler, and that did not end up well. Now, I want you to watch this Time magazine video of
Ed Sheeran, Elon Musk, and Serena Williams. What do they all have in common with Ahmed al-Sharaa, the Syrian revolutionary who, until recently, had a $10 million US bounty on his head? As of this week, al-Sharaa has joined celebrity ranks among Time 100's most influential people of 2025. The US-based magazine added Syria's interim president to its list on Wednesday, to the excitement of internet users everywhere. And why does this matter? Well, last December, after years of building a powerful armed faction, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Ahmed al-Sharaa and his rebel alliance toppled Bashar al-Assad's brutal government in Syria. Once aligned with al-Qaeda, the soft-spoken al-Sharaa has sought to rebrand his perceived extremism and build alliances with other Syrian rebels, Turkey, and the international community. Now interim president of Syria, al-Sharaa shoulders the difficult task of uniting militant factions, liberal Syrians, and a myriad of ethnic and religious minorities as civil strife continues across the country. Al-Sharaa's Time nomination therefore marks a PR win, as the interim leader seeks normalization from the international community. He has continuously called for Assad-era international sanctions against Syria to be lifted.
Now, after watching that video, it's interesting to see, because I'm going to show you the next videos from Trinity Broadcast Network. And as I was keeping my eyes on these things, I was hearing one thing from Time Magazine and another thing from TBN. So I want you to watch who they noticed right away that al-Jolani is, and they had concerns about his intent.
In recent events in Syria, there have been shocking reports of women kidnapped, children massacred, and thousands from the Alawite minority fleeing to the mountains for safety. These atrocities are reportedly carried out by forces loyal to the self-proclaimed new Syrian president Ahmed al-Sharaa, who for the most time of his life was known as Abu Muhammad al-Jolani. These incidents have raised concerns about the new government's so-called commitment to protect minority communities. The big question is, will Ahmed al-Sharaa actually unite Syria under a modern constitution that includes the protection of all ethnic groups, including Kurds, Druze, Christians? Or is it just talk? He's been preaching for unity, but recent events paint a very different picture, and nobody is watching closer than Israel. Because if he turns Syria into an Iranian-style terror state waging extreme holy jihad, that would be a terrifying threat right on our border. In the Middle East, it seems like when one tyrant falls, another one rises up. And in Syria, it's looking like Bashar al-Assad's fall may be paving the way for an Ahmed al-Sharaa. For most of his career, he went by the name Abu Muhammad al-Jolani and was once tied to Al-Qaeda and played a key role in bringing down Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Now, he's positioning himself as the next big power player in a country torn by chaos. But can a man with a militant jihadi past really step into the role of a true leader? Or is this just the start of another chapter of turmoil? So, who is Ahmed Sarah or Abu Muhammad al-Jolani? And what does his rise mean for Syria, the region, and most importantly, for Israel? Let's begin.
Now that you finished that video, I want you to realize that I said that there was two kingdoms that work together. And if you see the picture this way, you're going to be able to see the mark of the beast a lot better and understand how to move in the days ahead. These three videos here, these are bloggers, and they said, and you can watch them, these are not pro-Israel people. And so I don't like to share that because I think you need to get, no, I don't think, I know that God comes back for the sake of Israel and his holy name. Why? Because he made covenant with her. And he's going to protect his name and finish the promise that he made. Or he's not God. And God is God, and he's going to do those things. Now, these videos talked about how MI6, the CIA, was in bed with Syria and the coup to overthrow and to put Jolani in place there. And I think it's very interesting, but I'm going to show you a video. This was from the middle one, Britain's Dirty Secret, how MI6 helped Al-Qaeda occupy Syria. This video has a man in here talking about how he met with Jolani in 2023. Remember, Jolani did not take captive Syria until December 2024. They have been grooming him. Why? Because this is to make Islamic prophecies come true. This is to make a war against Israel. And this is the apocalypse. This is the time is now, and we're walking into it, and you have to understand that. So watch this video.
23, a British non-government organization which specializes in conflict resolution, invited me to help them bring this guy out of the terrorist world and into regular politics. And at first, I have to tell you, I was very leery of going. I sort of had images of me in an orange jumpsuit with a knife to my throat. But after talking to several people who had gone in, and one of whom had met him, I decided to take the chance. And so the first time I met him, this guy's name is nom de guerre, was Abdulkader Jolani, but his actual name is Ahmed Sharaa, which he only revealed to the world after he captured Damascus in the Blitzkrieg of December 2024, about 5 months ago. First time I met him, I sat down next to him, and I'm literally as close as I am to Roy, and I said, this is all in Arabic, I said, never in a million years could I imagine that I would be sitting next to you. Long beard, thin fatigues. And he looked at me, he speaks very softly, and he said, Wallah ana, me neither. And we went on and actually had a pretty civil conversation. I share this because he said something which really piqued my interest. He never apologized for the terrorist attacks in Iraq or in Syria, although there were many fewer in Syria. Never apologized. But he also said, you know, now I am governing an opposition-held area of northwest Syria, and I am learning that the tactics and the principles that I was following in Iraq do not apply when you actually have to govern 4 million people. And they had 2 million residents of that area of Syria, and then another 2 million refugees who had come there from other parts of Syria. So they had a population of 4 million. He said, I am learning that to govern, you have to make compromises. I was very struck by that. So that was in March 2023, just over 2 years ago. We went back a second time in September.
Again, after watching that video, it's clear that there's a plan in place to put al-Jolani. And if they're putting al-Jolani in, They are not going to let him fail. Here are just some of the articles of the nation standing with Jolani, and you can see in pictures of the right of him standing with world leaders. So Syria signs a $14 billion investment deal, including airport and subway projects. And Syria and Saudi Arabia signed a $6 billion deals in investment. And remember, it was Saudi Arabia and Turkey that made a deal with America and had Trump meet al-Jolani, or Ahmed al-Sharar, the leader of Syria. And we got in return, I can't remember, 600 billion, 600 million. I really can't remember exactly. But we got this deal. But we sold Israel down with it. Because it's going to be really hard for Trump once he cashes that check to go back on that deal and to protect Israel when Israel needs it. And there's the last article says there's plenty of scope of trade between Turkey and Syria, and says head of the revived business council. Again, this is the land beast installing the sea beast. And then we also see, this was in July 7th of 2025, revoking the foreign terrorist organization designed as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. What is this? Well, it says this. Marco Rubio said, in line with the President Trump's May 13th promise to deliver sanction relief to Syria, I'm announcing my intent to revoke the foreign terrorist organization's designation of Al-Nusra Front, also known as HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, the revocation will be effective tomorrow, July 8th. I want you to understand that HTS stands for the liberation, it's the Organization of the Liberation of the Levant. Well, why is that important? The Levant is a specific territory. If you remember ISIS, their name was Islamic State for Iraq and Syria, but they didn't obtain Syria, but Jolani did. President Obama used to call it ISIL. Why? Because it was the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. The Levant included Israel. That's why he would only call it ISIL, because it was code for taking down Israel. They just dropped the terrorist organization name on this guy, Jolani, when he has full intents. His organization meant taking the Levant, which includes Israel. Now, again, if we look at Albert Pike's letter, what is the game plan? You have two kingdoms. They work together. They both serve Allah. And you see that, I've shown it in other videos, but you see the New World Order, the Illuminati, Freemasonry, they worship Allah. That's why you see sometimes Messianic lodges going down and practicing the Hajj, where they walk down around the rock. And I have to wonder, why is black rock called black rock? It reminds me of the Hajj, and it comes from a company called Blackstone, and their computer system is Aladdin, which in Arabic means faithful servant of Allah. There's connections here. In Islam, they wore the red fez, the Ottoman Empire. But in Masonic lodges, they wear the red fez too. Why? Because God is only called by one name in those Masonic lodges, and that's Allah. Why? Because these two work together. They are serving the same God. And it's not God, but it is Satan, the dragon. So, and we know it's going to be an unholy trinity. We know Revelation 16:10 says, the throne of the beast and its kingdom was plunged into darkness. And we also know that there are three impure spirits in Revelation 16:13 that look like frogs that come out of the dragon, the mouth of the beast, and the mouth of the false prophet. There is a false prophet. There's a kingdom underneath that elevates him. There is an Antichrist. There's a separate and distinct kingdom underneath that elevates him. And they work together. Why? Because it comes back to Genesis 15, the covenant God made with Abraham. So, there are titles in the Bible for the Antichrist. He's called the Assyrian. Hello. He's called the Prince of Tyre, Lebanon. He's called the King of Babylon. That's Iraq. And he's called the Pharaoh of Egypt. Now, three of those four are the Levant areas. Why does ISIS. Why did HTS want the Levant? Because that is where the Antichrist is going to rule from. These are going to be nations. These titles are nations that succumb to the Antichrist. And Gog of Magog, Meshech, and Tubal, this is the leader of Turkey. He's going to take Turkey also. Now, there's other biblical supportive verses for the Middle East, like Daniel 7:25, the Antichrist changing times and laws. I believe that's Sharia law in the lunar calendar. By peace, he will deceive many. We know that they're walking into a peace agreement. He is one of many inside that peace agreement. No, the Antichrist is not going to be President Trump. It is someone from the caliphate that will reform the caliphate to take it against Israel. Revelations 20, verse 4, beheaded because of their testimonies. This is exactly what Islam does. John 16, 1 through 4, when anyone who kills you think that he is offering a service to God, Allah Akbar, God is greater. That is what Islam teaches. In 1 John 2, 22, 23 describes the spirit of Antichrist, the denial of the Son, and in Islam it is blasphemy to say Allah is the third of three. It's shirk, it's the unforgivable sin. So us Christians are a target because we say Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And to deny that is a spirit of Antichrist. So now I'm going to go into Islamic traditions. This is from Islam. Islamic traditions picture the Mahdi, who I believe is our Antichrist, as joining with the army of Muslim warriors carrying black flags. The Mahdi will then lead this army to Israel and reconquer it for Islam. The Jews will be slaughtered until very few remain, and Jerusalem will become the location of the Mahdi's rule over the earth. Why is this their belief? Rasulullah Muhammad said armies carrying black flags will come from Khorasan. No power will be able to stop them, and they will finally reach Ila Baktul Maqdis. This is the Dome of the Rock where they will erect their flags. Now, I point out in other videos that Khorasan is ancient Afghanistan. Afghanistan is where we left billions of dollars in military equipment when we just left them there. Why? Because we provided the equipment for one day this hadith to be true. Two kingdoms working together, you create time and space between what you do, and then people don't trace it back to you. They are separate and distinct, but sharing and working for the same dragon. Now, in Islam, it says the Mahdi will be victorious and eradicate those pigs and dogs and idols of this time so that there will once more be a caliphate, kingdom of the Antichrist, based on prophethood, as the Hadith states. Jerusalem al-Quds will be the location of the rightly guided caliphate in the center of Islamic rule, which will be headed by Imam al-Mahdi. Now, his job is this, that will abolish the leadership of the Jews and put an end to the domination of the Satans who spit evil into people and cause corruption in the earth. That part is speaking of the Christians, making them slaves of false idols and ruling the world by laws other than Sharia of the Lord of the worlds. Okay, let me explain. Because Christians believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and we go by a different law that's targeting the Christians. So again, you have a religion that wants to kill the Jews and annihilate the Christians, and wants to place Sharia law, and it's over the Lord of the worlds. They believe that Allah is the Lord of this world and the underworld. Now, this video is important.
I worked on so many videos lately to translate. I had another post, I don't know if you have seen it on X. It's about a sheikh from some Bedouin tribe having an interview. And he was asked, why didn't we see any movement from you or from the Bedouin tribes to liberate the Golan Heights? So the sheikh said, no, the war in Sweden is more important than liberating the Golan Heights at the moment because I am fighting Israel. So in each video that I'm seeing now and I'm receiving of them admitting their true goal, which is not to have a Syrian country, but rather to reach Al-Quds, Jerusalem, through Suwaida. Suwaida is just a crossroad point for them. And then they want to go to Tiberias, and then they want to reach Jerusalem. They want to go to Al-Aqsa Mosque. and they're trying just to make it an excuse that we're having let's say tribal clashes between Druze and Bedouins, which is not true, because as we have seen, the Syrian regime is associated with all of this genocide.
Now, the second video is important to understand because this video is showing you that Jolani was the head of the Red Bandanas, who just happened to be the group that walked into the hospital that shot everybody in cold blood. We're looking at al-Sharar's character. He's not a perceived terrorist like Time magazine would say. He's an actual terrorist. He's beheaded people. Okay? And they make the Be'ah, well, I shouldn't say, this video here, they're going to make a death pledge. After the video, I'll explain the difference between the death pledge and a Be'ah pledge.
Do you want to tell us anything about this video, Julia, before we hit it? Or do you have anything else you want to read?
No, I just read everything. Let's see the video and we'll talk later about it.
Okay.
نبايع الله نبايع الله ونبايع محمد رسول الله ونبايع محمد رسول الله ونبايع محمد رسول الله على الجهاد في سبيل الله وعلى الثبات في سبيل الله بيعة على الموت في سبيل الله انتصارا لأعراض المسلمين وذودا عن المظلومين ورفعا لراية الدين والله على ما نقول شهيد والله على ما نقول شهيد والله على ما نقول شهيد والحمد لله رب العالمين.
What do you think?
Lovely. Yeah, just a lovely bunch of people. Can you please explain to us what did we just see?
Okay, so besides of hearing Allah, Allah, Allah all the time, this video is circulating all over the platforms. It's very important because we're used to hear about the historical record, the dark historical record of Jolani, establishing HTS and being part of ISIS, etc. But here we have a new terrorist organization led by him called Red Bandanas. So for anyone who doesn't know what it means, the Red Bandanas, they are very, very lethal and very dangerous, actually, towards minorities and toward the Druze now, because they took part in the massacre in Suwaida. And it's very crucial for us to bring up this video because Jolani was part of it. And now he's the president of Syria.
Yeah.
So why do you have the Red Bandanas attacking Suwaida? They are not Bedouin tribes. So why would you let the Western media speak of the whole ordeal in Syria as tribal clashes when you have other militias who are not Bedouins coming to massacre the Druze, like the Red Bandanas? So yeah, it's also very crucial to say that this was filmed in 2020, and it was a ceremony. It's a death ceremony. Like, imagine yourself being in Pharaoh time and having a book of the death and reading few things or verses from that book. And that's exactly what they were doing in this ceremony.
All right, noticed in that video that al-Sharar was not making the pledge. It was almost like they were pledging it to him. Now, there is a difference here, and I did look this up. It says the Bay'ah is an Arabic word that translates to pledge in English. In the Islamic Sunni intellectual tradition, there are two types of Bay'ah. The first is the Bay'ah of allegiance and obedience to a Muslim caliph. This also functions as an individual's endorsement of a Muslim appointment as a caliph. The second is a bay'ah of commitment to accomplish a certain religious mission or task, or to abstain from certain things on religious grounds. Bay'ah al-Maut, the pledge of death, as discussed in this article, falls under the second type. Bea Almat, which falls under the second category, varies among groups with a few commonalities. Firstly, it is done in the name of a dedicated to Allah, which we saw in that video. It was definitely dedicated to Allah. Secondly, it pertains to the intent to perform a mission or task. Thirdly, it is an explicit declaration of readiness to die for the mission or for the task. I do not know in 2020 what the mission or the task that he was asking them to do, but I understand this, that when the Mahdi comes, the final caliph, al-Islam, is required to play the Bay'ah pledge. If he is the Mahdi, the final caliph in Islam, which would be our Antichrist, they are commanded in their governmental system to play a pledge of allegiance to him and to give their life to him, just like what we saw there. Now, it's important for us to understand, this is a slide I've shown in some of my videos before, and this is talking about the Bay'ah Pledge. It says, if you see him, the Mahdi, go and give him your allegiance. That's the Bay'ah Pledge, even if you have to crawl over ice, because he is the vice regent, the Khalifa of Allah, the Mahdi. He is the spokesperson for Allah. He will pave the way for and establish the government of the family of Muhammad, and every believer will be obligated to support him. Now, in Islam, if you don't support him when he comes, then you are an apostate. And in Islam, apostasy means death. So there is a grand pressure to pressure those to follow him. So just imagine that nobody knows who he is until the invasion at the Temple Mount, and the angel of light, Lucifer, steps into his body, and the angels from heaven, a third of them at that time revolt and come to the ground, and you have the New World Order already laying and paving the foundations of aliens. And you just had the Boebert on Joe Rogan talking about interdimensional beings. That's because they are interdimensional beings. But there's going to be a part where they're not able to go to the other side anymore. They are cast out of heaven, and they will then be on the earth. And all the AI things that we've built up for them to inhabit, this is why this becomes so dark. This is why there are two separate kingdoms, and you have to understand the foundation of how they work together. The Mahdi, he will reappear on the appointed day. That appointed day is halfway. See, they will know him when he invades the Temple Mount, and at that time, Christians will too. Those that didn't take the mark. But many Christians, I believe, will take the mark because they don't understand that there are two separate beast systems. And then he, the Mahdi, the Antichrist, will fight against the forces of evil. That's us. That's what they believe. We're the forces of evil. Lead a world revolution and set up a new world order based on justice, righteousness, and virtue. Ultimately, the righteous will take the world administration in their hands. This is the Muslims believe, and Islam will be victorious over all the religions. So my question for you is, does al-Sharar want to take Israel? Here's a video from memory. And as you can see, it says, Allah willing, we will reach not only Damascus, Jerusalem awaits us as well. So please read the subtitles in this video.
بإذن الله لا نصل فقط دمشق بل إن القدس تنتظرنا بإذن الله تعالى. والله أيها الأخوة أتيت وليس معي إلا 60 بندقية. أرسلت إلى حلب 7 بنادق، وإلى دمشق 5 بنادق، وإلى درعا 7 بنادق، وإلى حماة 5 بنادق. حماة هذه قاطع حماة. هذا كان كل ما عندي. ومن كان يأتيني مبايعا أقول له نحن ناس ليس عندنا شيء، نعمل هكذا بالذي نستطيع عليه. ما لنا اليوم، لا نخرج إلى غزوة إلا دبابات ومدرعات وكونكورس وعدة وعتاد وأعداد كبيرة. ولذلك هي حرب أفكار وعقول أيها الأخوة، حرب إيمان، حرب عقيدة. يجب أن نستخدم كل المتاح حتى نحمي أهل السنة. يجب أن نستعمل عقولنا، يجب أن نتضرع إلى الله عز وجل. يجب أن يكون في أعظم لحظات الانكسار يجب أن يكون لدينا عزيمة قوية جدا، وأن لا نفقد الثقة بالله عز وجل أن الله عز وجل سينصرنا. هذا مما لا شك فيه الأخوة، فهو وعد صادق من الله عز وجل مكتوب في أشرف كتاب وهو القرآن الكريم. بإذن الله لا نصل فقط دمشق، بل إن القدس تنتظرنا بإذن الله تعالى.
هنا أرض الإسلام، هنا دمشق، هنا فسطاط المسلمين. من هنا يا قدس، من هنا قادمون يا قدس. صبرا يا أهل غزة، صبرا صبرا.
Now, am I the only one who thinks that this guy could be the Mahdi or the Antichrist? No. This is a video from Fala Talks, Exploring Islam. Is this Imam Mahdi Abu Muhammad al-Jolani? And then this video says connections with Sufani, Jolani, Imam Mahdi, arrival in 2027. And then there was a Bible one that says the Bible Lens podcast, is Ahmed al-Sharar the Antichrist, the Mahdi? Question mark. I want you to understand from studying Islam, I know this. When the Mahdi comes, he serves as a military leader, a political leader, and the religious leader of Islam. As you can see in this picture on the top right, this is Jolani doing the Hajj in Mecca. This is a picture of him in the military fatigues, and he is also, as you will see in the next slide, here is his governmental picture. He fits the requirements of Islam. I do not believe they will know he is the Mahdi until when he invades Israel. But is that his goal? It definitely is his goal. If you, the video up above talks about in Jerusalem that the actual game plan of Jolani was to take Sveda, to have access into Tiberias and then Israel. And do you understand that Turkey supports it and is trying to help them get rid of the Kurds? And they say that Turkey says that the Kurds are the part of the PKK and that's a terrorist group in Turkey. And no, the Kurds helped the U.S. defeat ISIS. And then President Trump gave over the people that were being taken captive, that the Kurds were taking care of, the prisons, and gave it over to Jolani, who was formerly with ISIS. That is the wolf guarding the hen house. Folks, people aren't putting these things together, you need to understand how this is so important. Because what I'm telling you, this guy looks like their Mahdi. Now, let's look at the time, because if I'm right, then this peace agreement coming up should have some other factors. And this is really what pushed me into doing this video. The UN General Assembly, the 80th, is going to start on September 9th. But on September 7th, there's a blood moon over Israel. A warning. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and notable day of the Lord. That's a warning shot to Israel. And it ends with an eclipse. So September 2025 brings two epic eclipses, a dramatic super blood moon and a fiery partial solar eclipse. Now, we also know that the Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah, will begin on the evening of September 25th and continue into the following day, September 26th. The UN General Assembly will talk about important stuff starting September 23rd, 2025. And you can believe that Israel is going to be in the important stuff. And it's going to be around the Feast of Trumpets. I don't know if the Jewish calendar is still on its correct dates. But I can tell you that if there's a peace agreement that happens in the fall, around this time, either end of September, early October, that is most likely on the Feast of Trumpets, the actual heavenly Feast of Trumpets. The Book of Jubilees talks about that they're going to go off the actual calendar and that there was appointed times. But I can tell you that this is gearing up and it's got a lot of heavenly dates and warnings into this. Now, coming to the General Assembly right now, we know that most countries are now siding against Israel. And Mike Huckabee said that Britain handed victory to Hamas by recognizing Palestine. More countries, Australia, Canada, France, Malta, Portugal, United Kingdoms, every day more and more countries are recognizing a Palestinian state. What does that do? That rewards what happened on October 6th, 7th to Hamas, to give them statehood. Every time Israel's negotiated peace for land, it's gone bad. I can't imagine that this is going to go any different. We need to be looking at the days ahead and this fall and what's happening. Because if this is truly the peace agreement with Jolani that kickstarts the tribulation, then you need to be looking at what the next chips that fall. What are the next dominoes? And you need to prepare your family. I hope and pray that I'm wrong. But the convergence of events right now makes me say, as a watchman, I have to warn people. They need to know. Now, if they heed the warning, great. But if they don't heed the warning, that blood is on their heads, not mine, because I did everything I could to warn. We know this in Ezekiel 36. There's a prophecy. It says, therefore prophesy and say, this is the sovereign Lord says, because they ravaged and crushed you from every side. This is speaking of Israel. There's coming a day of Jacob's troubles, where Israel is ravaged by every side, so that you became the possession of the rest of the nations and the object of people's malicious talk and slander. Oh boy, I'm hearing Christians maliciously slander Israel because they don't understand that we are grafted into their story. And this is one whole story, and Jesus is going to come back for Zion. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I swear with uplifted hand, the nations around you will also suffer scorn. This is a geographical location surrounding Israel. Why? Because it's exactly what I said it was. It's a caliphate that will go and invade, and the days of Jacob's troubles will happen. Verse 22, therefore say to the Israelites, this is what the sovereign Lord says, it is not for your sake, people of Israel, that I am going to do these things, but for the sake of my holy name, which you have profaned among the nations where you have gone. I'm going to pause. I want you to understand, when God made covenant in Genesis 15, He made covenant. He pledged his life on this covenant. This land belongs to them. And he is going to give it to them. And not because of anything that they've done. Not that they're wonderful, not that they have protected God's name, but no, for his holy name. He will do what he said he would do for their sake. Verse 24 says, I will take you out of the nations. I will gather you from all the countries and bring you back into the land. Most Christians say, well, that's already happened. It has not. This is after Jacob's troubles. I will gather you from all the countries and bring you back into the land. I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be cleaned. See, when God comes back, he's going to bring them forth. There's a remnant that is protected. I will cleanse you from all your impurities and from all your idols. At that time, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. That stone to flesh heart has not happened until they see the one that they have pierced. Ezekiel 32 talks about the nations that go into the pit. Egypt, Assyria, Elam, Meshech, and Tubal, Edom. These are not European countries, folks. This is a caliphate. And when God says they ravaged and crushed you from every side, it's because it's the nations surrounding Israel that we need to be looking to, and he is going to vindicate them in the end. I think it's imperative to understand the hour that we live in right now. God does not want your heart to turn cold, and that was never meant to be my intention of the message. I'm a watchman to warn you. I see danger ahead. I see somebody that could actually be the Antichrist coming forth with a peace agreement coming soon, and you need to prepare. We'll know if I'm right. We'll know that if I'm right. You need to act on this. But I want your hearts to remain like clay, moldable. Don't let your hearts grow cold. I want to end on a clip that I think is very important. This is from a video that Joel Richardson, it's just a snippet, but it was about the persecution of Christians. And I love Joel's heart. And this is the heart that we need to have. And so I want to close on this so you understand that we need to be prepared to be able to give our lives as a testimony to the one who gave his life to us. You need to stay focused on Jesus. Don't worry about the cares of this world. Focus your eyes on him. He will not leave you. He will not forsake you. Pray for the Muslims. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Let God infiltrate your heart today. And if you're not saved, get saved. Ask Jesus to come into your heart and forgive your sins. So let me end on this video.
His love is the light of our day, but Jesus has chosen to use the lamps to evoke the power of Him by the Spirit of God.
One of the greatest pitfalls, Jesus said, of the last days is that the love of most will grow cold. And I already see a lot of my Christian brothers and sisters, and their love is growing cold, and they are allowing hatred and prejudice to creep into their hearts. And they speak of Muslims, they speak of the Middle East with hatred in their heart. They say things. I see some of the most grotesque things said in the name of Christianity. They say, well, the only solution is to reduce the Middle East to a sea of glass, or the only solution is nuclear in nature.
For me, when I look at ISIS, when I realize they're a couple of hours away, when you know, everyone's friends, people send you emails, this is the latest crazy thing ISIS is doing, and in a way that there's the temptation to just want to be more and more enraged, more and more hate ISIS, and of course the ideology, the the evil behind it does just make you sick to your stomach. But to know that I'm still called to love my enemy, and what does that mean when I look at ISIS, when I look at what they're doing to friends and family around us? How can I call myself a believer if I'm not praying for them?
Do you think Jesus saved you because you are better than Muslims? Jesus didn't save you or me because we are one drop better than the most vile terrorist in the earth. He saved you and me out of mercy and grace. And we claim to proclaim the gospel of mercy and grace. And if we want to navigate the days ahead in obedience to Jesus, then there's no room for prejudice, there's no room for hatred, there's no room for this tribalism, this us versus them. God is a father who loves his enemies. He is patient and kind and merciful toward his enemies, toward those that hate him. When Jesus died on the cross, this was the very essence of showing mercy to his enemies. And he says, you imitate me. You also likewise show mercy and grace toward your enemies. And in the days ahead, the Lord is going to turn the body of Christ, he is going to turn his people over to be persecuted as a witness to the nations, as a witness to his mercy and grace. And these are our only choices. We can choose to be ambassadors of Jesus, or we can choose to let our love grow cold and retreat into this tribalism and this hatred. But if you truly want to be a follower of Jesus, there's really no choices there.